Greetings. Hello. Welcome. We hope that you are well and reaching your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual strength today. We're happy that you are joining us for this week's episode of Our Ancestors' Voices, a weekly program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We welcome you today. We're glad that you're here for this week's subject topic. We don't need scum validating our history. We don't need scum validating our history. And yes, you heard us correctly. There are all of these efforts to completely wipe out the histories of colonized people, of oppressed people, of marginalized people. And these scum that are attempting to do this, they didn't give us our history, so they can't take it away. It's our history, and we claim our history with pride and dignity. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And if I could be so humble, I'll use myself as a humble example of what we're going to be talking about today. This has been a typical weekend for me, but it's been a very productive weekend. I have an 87-year-old cousin who lives in Richmond, and she's also happens to be my godmother. If you don't know, California, Richmond is a city just north of Oakland and just across the bay from San Francisco. And because I'm from San Francisco, I have quite a few people that, live in the Bay Area still. So this cousin is there, very close to me, as my godmother really helped me grow up. And now that she's in her late 80s, it's my honor to do what I can to make her life easier. So every couple of months, my wife and I drive down there. It's about an hour and a half away from where we are, and we take her to dinner. Her birthday was in December. We had so much going on in December, we weren't able to get down there. So this was her birthday dinner last night. She chooses the restaurant. We went down there, had a great time, got back, and then this morning I wake up, I drive 90 minutes away from where I live to meet with some wonderful people to plan out security for a pro-immigration march that's happening here in Sacramento in 2 weeks. And honored to do that, and honored to play that role with that. And then drove back and drove out here in the opposite direction, in the country where friends are having a Super Bowl party. And that's why I have on my Colin Kaepernick jersey, and I'm sitting in the car because they're inside. And my point of telling you all this is that it's a sincere honor to do this work and to run around like I've run around this weekend. It's a sincere honor to honor the relationships with the elders who made it possible for me to be here and to continue to do the work that fills my spirit with such joy and purpose, and to maintain friendships, because healthy revolutionaries have balanced lives. You don't segregate yourself from everybody and be alone and be miserable and call yourself a revolutionary. That's not a revolutionary. A revolutionary is someone who builds and maintains relationships. So yeah, I have friends, and they know who I am and what I represent. And this is how we build support. But none of that would happen. None of what I just told you would happen if I didn't have a strong sense of who we are historically and what our mission should be here. I wouldn't be sitting out here in the middle of the country worried about my internet talking to you. I would be inside eating all that wonderful food that's in there. But I know my history. And so that's why it's important for us to claim our history and not let other people confuse us as to who we are and what our purpose is for being here on this planet Earth. So we give honor and respect to the indigenous people. They know their history. No matter what these scum say, they know this is their land, and they know they're going to get their lands back. And we know that too. And we give honor and respect to our African ancestors. They know our history. They knew that we would be taking down all these paths of confusion and misinformation, but that at some point we will come back around to understanding that we are African people and Africa is primary to everything that we do. And whatever happens to us will only happen as it relates to what happens to Africa. So this is why we want to make sure you understand, these elements when we talk about appreciating history. You can build and form positive relationships. You can do a lot of work if you understand who you are. If you don't understand who you are and why you're here, then you'll get all caught up in their confusion and you'll get demoralized and upset and you won't be able to do much of anything. But if you know who the hell you are, and you don't get derailed by all their confusion, and to do that, to know who you are, you got to know your history, then there's nothing these people can do to stop you. And so this is what we're going to talk about today. And we start, as we always do, just by giving you the brief history of who we are, our ancestors' voices, a program sponsored each week, same time, same platform, same place, by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the AAPRP. And the APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass, Pan-African political party with our base in the only place that base could be, Africa. It's not in America. It's not in Canada. It's in the national home for African people everywhere on Earth, Africa. And our objective is we are fighting for Pan-Africanism. We are fighting for one unified socialist Africa as a solution to the problems that we face. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism, you can get an understanding of it if you study Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, which is displayed on the screen if you're looking at it, as hopefully you are. And that book outlines the strategy of uniting the revolutionary Pan-African formations into one body. That's the work we're doing. And Our Ancestors' Voices is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu, and my biological and ideological daughter, Shakura. And yes, both of us are active organizers within the All African People's Revolutionary Party. So to get us started on our topic for today, we don't need these scum to validate our history. I'll turn it over to Shakura.
Oh, thank you so much, kind sir. I appreciate that. Greetings, everyone. What's going on? So, let's start with talking about the lies of capitalism. That's always a fun topic for me personally. I love being able to dismantle basically the concrete foundation of how we exist by completely tearing it apart, because none of it is based on ethics, none of it is based on truth. It is all based on what needs to be said so that things can be sold and people can be exploited faster. That is capitalism defined in probably about 3 seconds. Okay. So, yes, capitalism lies all the time. That's definitely the first thing you need to understand. I would argue when you come out the womb, you need to understand that. But some might argue that being a newborn, it might be too early to start talking about capitalism, but whatever. I would argue we need to learn that lesson as soon as we come out the womb. If we have been systemically lied to, then that means we have also been misinformed about the kind of murders that have taken place. We have not been properly educated on the true purpose of those murders, as well as what those folks were doing for them to be targets, to be taken out and assassinated, right? This means that we don't really know the full stories on what organizations were infiltrated and disrupted, but also destructed. We don't have the full story on any folks who unfortunately suffered at the hands of sexual assault without consent, if you understand what I'm saying. We also don't understand how many organizations and comrades have been sabotaged. They have been threatened. They have been neglected. They have been beaten. They have been abused. They have been waterboarded. They have had their families been fatally taken from them in front of them, right? We have no idea what those numbers really look like. And I think that some of us might think that I'm talking about something that happened 50 years ago, or something that happened 25 years ago, or even something that happened pre pandemic. I'm talking about things that are happening right now, comrades, because Organizers are being sabotaged as we speak. Organizers who are wrongfully accused are incarcerated right now as we speak. Organizers who have made it very clear that they have sacrificed their life and their love for humanity, they have every understanding that their families have already exhibited the brunt of their decisions. They already understand that certain people are not even walking on this planet anymore because of the roles that they played and the decisions that they made. And so, we can continue to think about how all of this has been kept from us because capitalism does not want us to have that kind of information. It's actually very dangerous for capitalism to provide that information to us, because if we were informed about exactly what happened to our comrades, Kwame Nkrumah being poisoned, right? If we were informed on why Dr. King was really killed, if we were informed on exactly what happened to Sekou Touré and how exactly he died, if we were to get a authentic and ethical medical examiner's report back on any of these comrades, right? I think we would be in a much better position. Our comrade Aname Pictois Akwash, we would be in a much better position if we could actually trust what the medical examiner's report said to know exactly what happened when the cause of death took place, right? But we're not in a position to have that kind of information. We're not in a position to know what really happened with Malcolm X. We're not in a position to really know that those kind of documents are sealed for a reason, because if they really had that information available to us, then we would really understand why the verb scum and really the noun scum is so well placed. Because only a scum person would think that it is okay to set someone else on fire. Only a scum person would think it's okay to poison another living person. Only a scum person would sexually violate someone and then take their life. I mean, you have got to be out of your mind to do something like that. So you are scum, because that means you have no type of ethical bone in your gosh darn body. You have none whatsoever. And the only justification I can think of is you are scum. You are lower than scum. And you see no problem with how unethical you are going around treating people. You see no problem with protecting this country when you know it is full of lies, when you know it is full of lack of integrity, when you know it is full of harming people and violating people, not just for 20 years, for centuries. From the moment you took over this country, you were harming and violating people. And then you went to Africa and you harmed and violated some more people. And if you had anything to do with the colonization of any other group of people, you harmed and violated them. You stole their land, you violated their people, you sexually assaulted their people, you even took some lives in the process, you stole their materials, you stole their resources, you stole their ideas, you stole their culture, you stole everything from them, everything. And then you have the nerve, you have the audacity to question as they still try to figure out who they are. Who? What gives you the right? You've taken everything from them, and the resilience allows them to still understand not only that they matter, but that they have a role and a responsibility to make this world better and to undo all the harm and trauma that you have done to them. Every single oppressed person must and needs to understand that. It is so messed up that what happened to us happened to us. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. But we have a responsibility not to perpetuate it, to continue happening. We have a responsibility to undo it. We have a responsibility to unlearn it. We have a responsibility to deconstruct it. We have a responsibility to resist capitalism by any means necessary. I said that to my friend just the other day. We had just celebrated our friendiversary. For years, I've been friends with this person. And I said, I'm really thankful to have this friendship with you after all these years, more than a decade. And really, what you and I are trying to do is we are still trying to honor, love, and respect one another under capitalism. I said, do you have any idea how hard that is to do? But we have done it for more than a decade. We wouldn't be friends with each other if we didn't feel love and value and respect. And so to do that kind of humanity in an inhumane system is pretty much close to impossible. And this is why a lot of people fail at relationships, because the system has taught them how to devalue one another. The system has taught them how to disrespect one another because they're not valued enough. So instead, we have to learn how to unlearn those teachings because they have not helped us and they will not help us. You know why? Because they're not designed for us. That's why. It's very simple. They're not designed for us. They were never designed for us. This whole country is not designed for us. That's why we always make the recommendation that you should increase your political education, because the more information you access, the more information that has been kept from you by purpose, the more information that you reveal for yourself, the more information that you discuss with other like-minded people, because you are in an organization that is working for justice, or maybe you are starting an organization that is working for justice. Either way, you're going to start to learn so many nuggets, that are only going to help build up how much you think you know, but you really don't know. There is a saying, the more you know, the less you know. Oh my God, it is so true. It is so true. And that's where humility comes into play. Because you might think you read enough about Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. And you might think that you have all the information because you read 3 books by this comrade, or 4 or 5. That doesn't mean you know every single gosh darn thing about that comrade. So instead of the ego getting in the way, why not dive in and try to learn as much as you can with every breath in your body? That's an opportunity to grow your brain. That is an opportunity. Take the opportunity. Consider it a gift, a blessing, whatever. Take the opportunity. Try to learn as much as you can. As much as you can. Because next thing you know, information will continue to have a higher profit and cost on it. And pretty soon we will have to pay more to reveal our political education. So let's continue to access it while we can, because we still have a lot of growing to do with our brains. And we certainly have a lot of growing to do as a society and as oppressed people who are ready to fight back. But we cannot fight physically with the weapons until we can fight back ideologically with the weapon. Are you with me? I hope you are, because what I said was very deep just now. We have got to fight back ideologically. Our comrades have said that. There's too many to name. So many of them have said that repeatedly, that you must have an increased political education before you yield a weapon physically. Otherwise, you're not even going to know how to use the weapon physically, because you need to know who you're fighting against. You need to know why you're fighting against that person or that group of people. You need to know why you want to take down that system. All of that can build up with the increased political education. But it has to start with the PE. It has to. Otherwise, you're not resisting the propaganda that has been literally thrusted down your esophagus. Since you came out of the womb, it's been thrusted down your throat. So you have to work to push back against it by learning the lies that they told you, and now by learning the truths that were never revealed to you. You have to understand that. And we're not, as I said, we're talking about centuries of this happening. We're talking about centuries of being lied to. We need people to understand that we wouldn't want anyone to realize that today unless they are clear that they have a responsibility that's attached to it. Because it's something to undo all those lies and those truths. It's another thing to now take that information and to use it so that the people can be advanced forward. Those are 2 different things. A lot of people have information, next slide, and they choose not to do anything with it. They choose not to do anything with it. They choose not to advance the struggle of people. They choose not to push against the system. They choose not to fight back. And that's very unfortunate. So we don't want you to just get this information. That's why we always say join an organization that's working for justice. A lot of us tend to read independently. I was one of those people. My work study anniversary just passed on February 6th. This year will be 4 years that I have been in work study. And before work study, I asked Comrade Ajamu, I said, can you give me the list for work study? Because I think I am ready to start increasing my political education. I. That's problem number one. And he said, I can give you the list, but I really think you should join a work study circle. I think it would be very beneficial for you to discuss your ideas, to discuss your comprehension, to discuss how you have taken information and been able to apply it to different pieces that you've already had and to some that you're still learning while you discuss that in an open space and circle with other individuals who are working through some of those same concepts. And he said, it's not going to help our people if you yourself start to have all this information and start to figure out ways to help our people. You need to be working with other folks who can organize with you, because you're not going to be able to change anything by yourself. If you would have done it by now. And if you know Comrade Ajamu, you know he says that pretty consistently. And that was actually the first time I really heard him 4 years ago, February 3rd, because the next meeting would have been the 6th. And I said to myself, you're right. I think I just want to make sure I can commit to this, but I think I'm ready to join work study. That was 4 years ago. And I promise you, my dissertation would be weak as hell without work study. I'm telling you right now, my dissertation is going to blow everybody out the water, because I am thankful that the ancestors have chosen to write down the nuggets that we need to free and advance our people. I'm thankful that I am humble enough to understand that I don't know everything. And I pray to God that I can die learning as much as I can. I pray, may God be my witness with that. So as we continue to think more about that, this is where that starts to really come into play. Because if you do nothing but lie to people and you hide the truth from them as a system, then that means your humanity is not humane. That's what that means. You don't even see a problem with keeping the truth from people. How could you be humane? You don't even know how to define that. You don't even know what it means to be humane. That would never even cross your mind to do something like that. I saw the nicest humane ethic principle that I saw today that I had not seen in a long time. I was out taking a walk and I saw that this person was pulling their dog, and their dog had gotten free from the leash. It was a very busy street. There were cars that were zooming by, and I was so worried. I didn't want anything to happen to the dog, because thankfully I am still in tune with my humanity. Okay. So I was very worried about the dog, and I started walking faster because I wanted to check and see if this person needed help getting the dog to stay where they were while they got the harness and the leash back on the collar, and then we snapped it into place and all that stuff. So before I could get to the person to help, this car was driving by and I saw them slow down, and I was like, oh, they're slowing down in case the dog darts. They don't want to hit the dog. That's nice. And I looked down and I looked up again. The car had pulled over. The driver had got out and was like, do you need any help? And starts distracting the dog so the person can pull the harness over the dog's neck. It was such a beautiful sight. And we don't see enough of that, because humanity is dead and we need to resuscitate it. We need to resuscitate it. We need to give it CPR, and we need to tap in to being kind and acknowledging of one another. I passed the shelterless couple just the other day. I had nothing to give them, no water, no money, no nothing. But you know what I did give them? I smiled and I gave them a head nod, because I wanted them to know that I saw them. I am empty physically, but internally and emotionally, I see you. And I'm hoping that this society can rot so that you can have a better way out the next time. You know what I'm saying? And so this is where all of that starts to come into play. And so we've got to tap back into that humanity. And that means we can't rely on systems of oppression to teach us that. Capitalism will never, ever be a good teacher for you with what it means to be humane. Imperialism, never, ever a good teacher. Homophobia, never a good teacher. Zionism, not a good teacher. All of those systems have taught us the opposite of what it means to be humane. Therefore, they would never understand what it means to be humane. If they did, they would not be practicing the actions that they're doing. They would not be stealing land. They would not be violating people. They would not be traumatizing people. They would not be harming people. They would not be gaslighting people. They would not be making people feel like they don't have a right to be in their own space, mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever. They would not be making them feel like that. And so, we have to understand that unfortunately, the people who practice inhumanity, the systems, the organizations that practice inhumanity, those are also the ones that have control. That's why they've been able to document the lies that they want us to believe. These lies have been documented in textbooks that have been mass produced, because you got to keep pushing the agenda. You got to keep pushing the propaganda, and you got to make sure the propaganda is taught to the youth, because the best way that you can protect capitalism is an input output system where you teach the young people who have just been born how capitalism operates. So by the time they input into the system, they're learning about capitalism. Capitalism is normalized for them. They love capitalism because they're patriotic. Okay, if you see the connection there, all right. And so then by the time they are output of the system, they would do anything for capitalism. They would do anything for this country that promotes capitalism. They don't want anything to happen to capitalism. That's why those are the people that'll tell you that socialism doesn't work, because it never occurred to them to actually learn about another system besides capitalism. All they've been taught is what this system has taught them. And this system would never teach them another outcome economic system, because that would be too much like right, where you're actually giving people the ability to think for themselves. No, 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 no. Can't have that. I need you to think exactly how I'm telling you to think and nothing else. Capitalism is the worst abuser that you can have in your life, if you understand what I'm saying, where you don't have no freedom whatsoever, because everything you do is clearly looked at and examined under a microscope. And the minute you start to think for yourself, that's dangerous. That's dangerous for you, it's dangerous for the system, and it's dangerous for the system's existence, which means it has to be terminated. You cannot think for yourself. So this is where we start to kind of understand that. So yeah, they produce lies and print them in textbooks, absolutely. And then these textbooks are shipped out to schools all over the country, and these textbooks are used in classrooms. These textbooks are used online schooling, what is it? Homeschool. These textbooks are used everywhere. So now you're having, mathematical problems about enslaved Africans. Sure, why not? Because you got to keep pushing the lies. You got to keep pushing the lies. The lies have got to remain consistent by any means necessary. And this is why they wrote that Africa was primitive. This is why, because that's a lie that they need to sell to you until the day you die. You cannot think any differently. You must understand that. That's why when you get a chance to go on a vacation, the first thing you say if you're African is not Africa. It's a place that you think is safe based on the propaganda. So you want to go to Barbados or Mexico because those are safe places. Not to diss our folks in Barbados, not to diss our cousins in Mexico. But what's wrong with Africa? Oh, it's too primitive. Oh, yeah, because you were taught that. That's right. Thankfully, I had a different teaching, so I understand things a little bit differently. I've also been to Africa, so I have that too. That's in my favor, right? So then we start to think about that. We're also taught that we can understand that the Americas were savages, right? And Asia was inferior, right? All of this is promoted in these textbooks, and it is sold to us. And the problem, we'll say, is, there was an old saying, Comrade Ajamu can correct me if I'm wrong, but the saying either came from Comrade Ajamu or it came from the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Do not let school interfere with your education. We say that because we do not want the teachings that you're receiving to block the political education that you so desperately need. And today, you're surprised that the system has no problem wiping you out of history, wiping indigenous people out, wiping out what happened with the Chinese Exclusion Act, wiping out what happened with the transatlantic slave trade, wiping out what happened with all of our Irish comrades in Ireland and 1,000 years of colonization. None of those things have been discussed. And they won't be discussed. That's why we can't rely on the system. We need to find that information ourselves with an organization that is working for justice.
Shay, obrigada, asante sana. Thank you very much, Midasi. Just continuing on this question of history, you all. First thing that has to be established to carry this discussion forward is no one can deny your history without your cooperation. Nobody can distort your history without you agreeing to allow it to be distorted. It's just not possible. There's nothing that anyone can do to defame you unless you, on some level, allow that to happen. And that's exactly what we do. We allow ourselves to have our history distorted because we don't have enough dignity. We don't have enough real concrete pride in our experience to claim our history, which means studying it so we understand it. So, because if once we understand it, it becomes very difficult for anyone to distort it because now you're equipped to defend your history. But we don't know our history. You know, look at us today. Look at us as African people, first and foremost. We're running around here talking about we're Americans. That's not our history. We were kidnapped and brought to this hemisphere. How the hell does that make us uh, identity, our identity? How the hell does that tie our identity to this hemisphere? It's like someone kidnaps you off the street, and because they hold you for a while, you develop that Stockholm syndrome and you begin to see yourself as having a relationship with your kidnapper. That's what that is, because we don't know who we are. And the same with indigenous people. They identify with this system. And, we do everything this system wants us to do. We join its military. We fight for it, for its interests. And our people get nothing. And we continue to perpetuate. We are definitely a part of the problem. We continue to perpetuate this defilement of who we are. So it cannot happen without our cooperation. And what we need to ask is how many of us have even read one book about our history? Now, a lot of people on here have probably done that, but you got to look beyond that. You got to look at your family, your friends, your coworkers. And then if you broaden it to that extent, then not even 10% of the people you know have read one book about history. I don't even know you, and I know that's true. And you know it's true. So this is the problem, because what we're doing with that is we're putting in place the conditions where they can say anything they want about us. They can create any kind of lies they want in their curriculum about us. And we don't have the tools to properly combat it. We don't have any tools to do that. And so eventually we just begin to accept it. And that's what you see happening. We don't have the tools to do it, and we just accept it because we're not studying it ourselves. I mean, how many of us work to defend the integrity of our history? Most of us don't do that. When someone says something backward about our history, we don't say anything. Oh, I don't want to start a fight. The fight's already started. What you're trying to do is defend. It's like somebody walking up to you and slapping the hell out of you, and you saying, well, I don't want to start a fight, so I'll just let them slap the hell. That's what you're doing when you take that cowardly stance. It's our responsibility to be the caretakers of our history. We owe that to our ancestors and to our future generations. So that's going to require us to develop some courage, you all, and to stand up for what's right and stop being such poot butts here today, because that's what a lot of us are. It's nothing but poot butts. And if we know nothing, then we do nothing. So if we don't know our history, then we'll accept whatever anybody says without our history, right? Like I was talking to some institutionally educated Africans. I'm talking about people who have degrees and advanced degrees within the capitalist system. And I do. So I'm not, criticizing them. I'm just saying that the difference between me and them is they think that that's enough and that they know everything they need to know because the master's institutions have educated them. Whereas I understand the master's institution, that education is just a prop for me to be able to get people's attention. The real education that I have came within the work study circle, cadre circle process of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I'm not 1 inch confused about any of that. So I'm talking to these people, and they told me, well, we weren't allowed. They were using this language. We weren't, as African people, we were not allowed to do this. And there were indigenous people there. So they were saying the same thing. We weren't allowed to do this. We didn't get this. They didn't let us do this. This is what they were saying. And I'm like, y'all are, this is so backwards. right? We have never not been allowed to do what we needed to do. We have always fought back. And the book that you see on this page is a clear example of that. The History of Pan-African Revolt. CLR James, you should study that book. He talks about over 300 slave revolts in the Western Hemisphere. This is why slavery ended, because it became untenable because of the revolts. That's what made it. Yeah, it was certainly the desire on the part of the Northern capitalists to industrialize, but uh, the writing was on the wall that with that happening, the the push towards industrialization and the inability to control our people, that it became clear that slavery was not only to the most diehard racists in the South, but most everybody, even a lot of people in the South, begin to realize like this is not sustainable here. But if you don't know the history, you don't know that. You think that they gave us something when slavery ended. You think that it would have never happened unless they would have cooperated. And you have that kind of backward slave approach to it. We've always fought back. And if you don't know that, you will think that it's weird to fight back, or that you're the problem by fighting back. You'll believe all these backward narratives if you don't know the history. When in reality, it's your human dignity. You should always fight back. This shouldn't even be in question. You should always fight back. So this question of claiming our history and Frantz Fanon's statement there, each generation has its mission. Its task is to either fulfill or betray that mission. And if you don't know your history, there's no way in hell you can know your mission. You'll accept any mission. I think Shakur had mentioned the saying of "Don't let school interfere with your education." That was Comrade Brother Zizwe Imtafutu Kweli, who taught me that years and years ago. And he also used to say, when he was speaking to large audiences, if you don't know your history, he spent one time we were in an auditorium somewhere and it was filled with all these young Africans. And he told him, if you don't know your history, they'll come in here and tell you that your identity is Afro Auditorium and you'll believe it. And of course, everybody laughed, but they got the message, right? That you don't know your history, like they'll tell you anything and you don't have anything to combat it. That's what you'll accept. And so that's why it's so important to understand it. This is what Fanon is talking about. The people who betray the mission never know our history. There's some people that know the history and make a conscious decision to be sellouts. But for the most part, we're talking about folks who don't know our history, that think that we don't really have a history, that we're Americans. And our history only is the only thing that matters in our history is the time we spent under colonialism or slavery, that we're British or we're French or we're Portuguese or we're Americans. All of that backward nonsense. You'll never understand your mission if that's what you believe. So the question is, what worldview do you want to leave, right, for future generations? We had no agency, and our best opportunities lie in the goodness of the system oppressing us, right? Or is it that we are the architects of our own history, and it's our responsibility to seize it on every level? Now, think about this for a second. If we had a healthy understanding of our history and we knew that from the beginning of time, our people have fought to develop a legacy for us, a culture. We were the architects of the communal system, and we developed that. And the communal system is what is the groundwork for communism, which hasn't happened yet. But this is our history. Our people fought through the slavery period. We fought through feudalism. We're fighting right now through the capitalist era. And we will fight to build socialism, and we'll fight within the socialist system to advance it to worldwide communism. And that's who we are. That's exactly what we'll do. But if you don't, if you have this perspective that we have never fought, you're listening to our enemies define what we've done. We've never fought. And you'll begin to think, well, the best thing we can do is fit in with this system of oppression. That's the best thing we can do, is fit in with the capitalist system. And the best fight that I can wage is advancing myself individually. If I can get a good job and be a smiling Negro and show up every day and have make a lot of money and buy a house, then I can convince myself that that's actually progress. When in reality, that's cowardice. That's what that is. That's opportunism. That's what that is. But if you don't know your history, you'll think that that's your mission. You'll think that that's what you're supposed to do. You'll think that that's a symbol of advancement when it's none of those things. So it's our responsibility to seize that history. And I would say that once you have that kind of mentality of seizing our history, it'll make everything in your life so much easier. It'll make it so much easier, you all, because a lot of us are sitting around here trying to fit into a system we don't fit in. We were never designed, as Shakur said, to fit into it, and we never will fit into it. And if you had a healthy mindset, you wouldn't even want to fit into it. I mean, that's dysfunctional to even want to be in that backward ass system. So, what a healthy mindset and understanding of history would give you is a desire to develop an independent analysis of the world, because you understand the analysis is being provided to you is not us. So you have to create an independent analysis that's not tied into this backward capitalist analysis. And once you do that, it changes how you see yourself. It changes how you see everything around you. It changes how you see the world, and it certainly changes how people see you, and it changes how people interact with you. When you are a proud African, when you're a proud indigenous person, when you're a proud LGBTQ, when you're a proud woman, etc., it changes how people interact with you. I don't have a lot of these disrespectful, I don't have any disrespectful interactions. I don't have a lot of these disrespectful interactions with people the way a lot of you all do. And that's nothing except how you carry yourself in contrast to how I carry myself. The people I did a workshop for a couple of weeks ago said the Nazis infiltrated the workshop, and the Nazis posted on their streams like that. Wow, he was so intelligent. We can't disagree with anything he said. And I said in the workshop, I know there's white supremacists in here, and I don't give a damn if you're here, because Kwame Ture said, get the enemies to work for the revolution. And we're stronger than you. I said that to their face. We're stronger than you. There's no way you're going to be able to defeat what we're doing. You can't do it. You haven't been through what we've been through. You're not going to be able to do it. I can exist in your world and function as I have my whole life as well, if not better, and it has been better than the overwhelming majority of European people. That's an absolute irrefutable fact, what I just said. By the same token, these people couldn't last 30 minutes in the environment I grew up in. And I tell them this all the time. And I tell them, I know that, you know that, and you know that I know that. And that's it. That's it. So why is that? It's because I know who the hell I am. And I know whose shoulders I stand on. I know what they went through to get me where I am right now. And I'm not going to let anybody take that away. You got to kill me to take that away from me. I'm never going to compromise that and sacrifice that and allow that to be disrespected. You have to take me off this earth to do that. And the minute you start developing that kind of understanding of who you are, you'll have a whole lot less problems with people. I guarantee you that, because they can feel that energy in you. And they don't want to mess with you because they know it's not going to be no pushover. Bullies don't ever go and mess with people they know they're going to beat them the hell down. They don't do that. They know how to identify people who are going to bow down and lose their identity and dignity and all that. They know how to do all that. And so that's what they do. So it's very, 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 very important that we understand all of these things and that we approach history from this perspective. We have to do that. And our history books, let's talk about the scum first. You know, these capitalist elements that want to deny our history. You know, these people, if you're interested, if you go to a betterworld.me, my blog, I wrote an article a week or so ago and posted it there about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm not advocating that. Like we don't need to integrate further into this capitalist system. That's not that. The whole DEI thing was to undercut independent revolutionary struggle. That's what that was all about. And I understand that because I know the history. But I am saying that the article I wrote talked about how there's no way I would have been able to go to college without programs like equal opportunity program, student affirmative action, and all I needed from those. I had the academics together. I figured out a way to get my life together and do that in community college, but I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have any money. So those programs gave me grants that allowed me to go to the university level and get a bachelor's degree. Now, by the time I got my master's degree, I paid for all of that out of my pocket. But the point I'm making to you is that people will say when I tell them that story, some of the people commented, well, you had the ability, you just had to carry it out to make it the way you have, whatever the hell that means. And I told people, no, I mean, you can have someone that doesn't know how to drive, that's never driven before, has fear of it because they don't understand how to drive. You can give them a car and car keys, and you can point them where they need to go. It's still going to be a massive struggle for them to get there safely. And most people won't be able to do it because they just don't know how. So I needed that support. And they would have these programs like I had to check in. I had people who I felt had a genuine concern for me as a human being and helped me navigate as a 17, 18-year-old that European university environment. And that was overwhelmingly beneficial to me. And these people helped me introduce me to the cultural studies programs that proliferated my political consciousness and led me into becoming who I am today. And not all those people who did that were Africans. A lot of them were indigenous people that did that. So this is what we're talking to you about, because that's the whole point of it. And then, the people said, well, you were given this financial aid and you were given some. I'm like, nobody gave me a damn thing, because I make all kind of good money today because I have great skills. And because of that, I've paid back that little financial aid that I got 25, 30 times over in terms of the taxes that I pay. I pay a ton of taxes, and I don't mind paying taxes because I know that building a society and maintaining it is part of my responsibility. And I'm honored to have that ability to make that contribution. I'm not selfish, but my point is that I know the history. So I'm not confused about any of that. And no one's going to be able to step in and make me confused about any of that. So you got to build that within yourselves. And the way you do that, first, number one, is stop worrying about what these bottom shoe scum have to say about us. Stop acting like your whole mission in life is to validate yourself to a bunch of scum. What a sick position to be in. What a sick position. Like, stop doing that. And the way you do that is, first, as you delve into our history, you realize there's nothing these people can do for you. So when they come to you, like I went to the town this morning to meet with the people to plan the security for this march, pro-immigration march coming up. And I'm sitting there like I'm clearly the only African for miles, right, in this place. And the man comes out, I'm sitting on my hood of my car because I'm waiting for the people I'm going to meet with in this cafe. So the man comes up and did you need help? And a lot of you, if that happened, you'd be like, oh, no, I'm fine. Thank you for the hell with that. I know what's underneath that. He's not anybody sitting there going to ask them that. He's asking me that. I'm not confused about that. If you want to be confused about it, that's your goddamn problem. I'm not going to play these damn games with these people. So I said, did I ask you for any help? Well, no, I just figured you needed help. I'm like, no, you the one that needs help. Go on and get the help you need. I don't need anything from you. And you might think that that's rude, but what I'm trying to do with my life is establish you're going to respect our people. All right. Don't be trying to police me because you don't think I'm supposed to be where I'm supposed to be. I know what's behind that shit. I'm not stupid. I know exactly what's going on. I've been here 63 years. I know what this country's about. You ain't, if I was an old white woman sitting there, just sitting on my car waiting, he's not going to ask me that. If I'm a young European or whatever, he's not going to come at me the same way. He's trying to figure out, do I have any legitimate reason in his mind to be there that justifies in his mind to be there, because his role is to police me. That's how he said, I know what's going on there. But when you have a healthy sense of who you are, you won't let people do that to you. And he just left. People leave me the hell alone. Like, don't talk to me. I don't need you. I'm not asking you for nothing. Don't talk to me. Don't say anything to me. Get your Trump ass on in there, or whatever, Harris ass, whatever your ass is. Get it the hell away from me and get it in there. I have nothing I need to talk to you about. That's the kind of mentality that we need, you all. And if that sounds really weird to you, then you're part of the problem. Because you letting all these people run over you with all this bullshit. And we need to learn how to recognize that we're a proud people. And we don't have to take all that disrespect. And as many of us that keep taking it, it makes it harder for us that don't want to take it. Right? So instead of doing that, focus on working to bring us together, to build our capacity, to overrun whatever these people want to do against us. And of course, one of the most effective ways to do that is, again, you got to be knowledgeable. You got to have information. You got to be informed. You got to do work. And you can't just do that individually. How's that working out? You can't do that. You have to study, and you've got to get involved with people, and you got to stop making excuses for why you're not doing it. I mean, there's all kind of excuses you can make. I told you everything that I've done this weekend. That's a typical weekend for me. And that's a typical day for me. I can do a whole lot of stuff. I'm not going to sit around and make excuses for why I'm not doing anything. It's a damn shame. That's pitiful to do that. All you have to do is take yourself outside, go somewhere where people are, take some literature. You can write up something that says, we want a better world, and put a picture of the planet Earth on it and say, are you interested in a better world? Let's work together. That's all you got to do. It's all you got to, anybody can do that. And print up 20, 30 of those, go to a park, go somewhere and see people and just say, hey, how you doing? I'm just wondering how you feel about the world today. Well, I think it's messed up. Here, take this. I think we should get together and do something about it. Well, what do you want to do? Well, the first thing I want to do is develop a study group so we can come to understand what these problems are and talk about ways that we could try to figure out how to address it, work with other people who are already doing that kind of stuff. And then we can take what we're studying and go out and do some work around it. Yeah, you'll talk to 30 people and maybe 2 or 3 of them will want to do something. That's how that process works. That's a victory, you all, if you do that. But you'll never get to that point. And if you do that, you'll begin to see the work coming to fruition. But if all you do is sit in your house and talk about what needs to happen, or talk to people about what you want to see happen, I mean, that's just a waste of time after a while. It's just intellectual masturbation. That's all it is. So do that. I just gave you the framework to make it happen. You don't need anything else. You don't know these people. They can't hurt you. They're not going to knock you out for initiating this type of conversation with them. They're not going to pull a gun out and shoot you. And if you're not willing to do that, they probably should pull out a gun and shoot you. So you're not serving any damn purpose. But they're not going to do that. You're going to help them realize their full potential while you're out here trying to realize yours. And that helps all of us. And then once you get in your group and you start studying this stuff, like Shakur said, and I'm a living example of it as well, and all of us are, once you start gaining this understanding of who you are, there's not going to be a force on earth that's going to be able to stop you. There's nothing you're going to be afraid of. The reason why you're afraid now is because you don't know a damn thing. Once you begin to understand all of this stuff, there's nothing that's going to make you afraid. There's only one thing that I'm afraid of. And the one thing I'm afraid of scares the hell out of me. And that one thing is that I do not do what the ancestors put me here to do. The idea that I disappoint their vision for my role in this life scares the hell out of me. And that's my motivation, to try to be the best person I could be. But that's only because I know my history. I know what they went through. I know what they went through at home in Africa. I know how they tried to defend and protect us. I know this. I've studied it. I understand it. I know about the Labodi people in Ghana, for example, who fought the British so hard. The British left. They left them the hell alone. They're like, these people keep kicking our asses. We can't do that. I know they stood up for us. I know they fought for us. I know what they did in the Middle Passage. I know they fought so that we could survive. I know that women sacrificed their minds and their bodies so that I could be here today. I know that my people on the plantation took the whip so that I could be here today. Took their escaped, ran with their feet and escaped the slave plantation. And when they got caught, they got their feet cut off and they still tried to hobble and escape. I know this. And because I know this, I am filled with strength and courage to go out here and do this work. There's nothing these goddamn people can do to scare me against doing this work. I come from a proud tradition, a proud history, and you do too. The only difference between me and you is you don't know a damn thing about it. All you know about is love and hip hop and all that bullshit. So you think that that's who we are. That's not who we are. That's Hollywood making money off of caricatures of our culture. Who we are is way more than that, way more than that could ever be. And because I know that, there's nothing they can do to stop me. And the only thing that I want to do is create millions who have the same mentality that I do. Because I know that once we do that, victory is on the horizon. It's certain. There's nothing they can do to stop it. Nothing they can do to stop it. Absolutely nothing. So we thank you for joining us. We invite you to join us back next week, February 16th. We're going to be talking about the healthiest love. We're not love counselors. We're not experts in it. We struggle with it like you do, but we've learned some things and we tie what we've learned to revolutionary life and ideology. And that's what we want to share with you next week, how to have a balanced life, a healthy life, right? We invite you to go to the QR code in the upper left-hand corner, the red and white one, and go to APRP programs there. You can get all the programs that we do. You can go to the Forward Ever shop and buy clothing that reflects revolutionary Pan-African slogans. You should do that. Even if you don't want to wear it, buy it and give it to someone else. Support our organization and our organizational work, right? And you can go to hoodcommunist.org there. They posted an article I wrote, and I have another article I'm going to get out to them, and there are wonderful articles from everybody on there, so support that. And I mentioned a betterroad.me has the article I did on DEI, if that's of interest to you. And then I want to invite you, we're starting our fundraising for African Liberation Day 2025. We commemorate African Liberation Day as a revolutionary independent institution all over the African world. And so we collect funds. The African Liberation Days we have in the Western Hemisphere, we fund those ourselves. But we do collect money for all of the commemorations that take place at home in Africa, all over Africa, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, Senegal, Ghana, Kenya, Azania, South Africa, Sierra Leone, etc., Nigeria, etc., and so forth. Zimbabwe, we have African Liberation Day commemorations in all those places, and we raise money to do that. So you can see on the screen, you go to the GoFundMe. Please do it. Give what you can, even if it's $5. Please contribute today to African Liberation Day 2025. There's the link there. What you do is you go to GoFundMe, and then when you go to GoFundMe, you can either copy that link there, or you can, and type in Together for Africa's Future and Dignity. Together for Africa's Future and Dignity at GoFundMe. And that's how you find our fundraising page. Please do that today and contribute. And we ask you to join the All African People's Revolutionary Party at aaprp-intl.org. You can watch the orientation video. Please do that. The bottom right QR code, support Burkina Books, one of the projects in Burkina Faso. Become a monthly sponsor for that. And finally, we ask you to support my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. I was interviewed by The Nation magazine Friday, and the guy was actually a lot better than I thought he was going to be. And he was really interested in the book. He actually had an interest in independent revolutionary organizing. I didn't expect it. I thought he'd be everything would be electoral politics. And, I'd have to tell him that that's not the only thing happening in the world. But he was very interested. So I'm hoping that helps. All the proceeds from that go to our anti-fascist work. I told you we're organizing security for the pro-immigration march. Fascists tend to show up at that, and we want to be prepared. So, we need funds. We need radios. We need other things to do this work. And I use all the funds from the little $8 a copy I get from this book to do that. You can only buy it on Amazon, but please do that and support that work. Get involved, you all. We've laid out the blueprint. The ball is in your court. You're either gonna fulfill your mission, as Frantz Fanon said, or you're gonna betray it. Don't be that person. Don't betray it. Have a great rest of your evening. Forward ever, backwards never. Stay strong.